This conference will now be recorded.
So now we will have the control get stops over here at line number 18. So what is the use of debugging is at this particular point we will be able to see the values of different variables that we have initialized. So at this particular point we would be able to see what is coming inside the driver. If there are some other variables like let's say I initialized 5 to 6 variables over here, and we can inspect the values of those variables at this particular line. Okay, so we will not be able to explore what is happening after this line because those were not executed yet, but whatever lines that have executed so far, we will be able to understand the state of those variables or state of the system at this at that particular point. So that is all about debugging is. So you are thinking like yeah, so you are running into issues like you are not able to basically find out what's there, like what is the XPath that is not able to uh, figure out the uh, object on the screen. So you should be able to match the XPath that you're giving and the application state at that particular point, right? So you are trying to find an XPath which is not there on the page. So you should know what is the state of the page at that particular point, right? So to analyze these kind of things, basically debugging will help us. So now let's introduce breakpoints at different steps. Let's suppose I want to put a breakpoint over here, and also inside the select product I have multiple things, right? So go to this, and here I'll introduce some breakpoints over here. So one breakpoint over here and one breakpoint over here. Now I'll start running this script. Basically, how do you run this script? You will do a right click, run as Java application. Instead of that, you have something called as debug. Okay. So instead of run as Java application, if you are running this Java as a Java application, it will not stop at debug points. Okay. So when you run this as debug as, it will basically stops at debugging. So the system will be in your control and the system stops and gives you the state at these breakpoints. So that is the base idea of debugging. So debugging will enable you to look at the states of the application at different breakpoints. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Okay. So now let's see how this debugging basically works. So when I click debug as Java application, so the expectation is we should be able to see the system got the system is getting stopped at that particular point. So it is asking us whether we want to switch to the debug perspective or not. So let's switch back to the debug perspective. What does the debug perspective means is you could see there are different perspectives that are available, whether one is enterprise, one is debug perspective. So that is what that basically pop-up means. So once we switch to this perspective, instead of project explorer we are able to see debugging, and we will also see different options enabled like this. So what are these options now? So before that, let's go step by step. Now the first thing that I told you is we will be able to look at the status of the variables or the values that are assigned to the variables. So if you look at the driver, so it is like a Chrome driver. The current driver that is initialized or this driver is storing is Chrome driver. Okay, so you could be able to find out the value of this. And now you are at this particular step number 18. If you want to proceed to the execution of the next step, only one step forward, you have something called as step over. Step over will basically goes to the next step in the same file. Okay, I'll tell you the difference. So search product is a call to another method in class Amazon homepage, right? This is the calling method. That is the called method, right? Search product is the called method, and here we are calling the search product method in the first Selenium code class, right? So when we have the implementation of a particular method in a different class, and if you want to go to that particular class, you have to step into that particular method, so that the pointer will basically goes into this Amazon homepage class, and you will reach out to the first step in this search product method. So that is step into. When you click on step over, it basically will not step into this search product method. Instead, it just crosses or completes the execution of this whole method and directly comes to this particular point. Are you getting me?
Yes.
Le- let's see this in live. So I'm clicking on step over. The expectation is it just come to the next step in this particular line, and I'm also clicking on step over, and it is coming to the line number 21. So here comes the difference. So search product is again a method which is declared in Amazon homepage. Now the pointer is at this particular line, at line number 21. So the difference comes like this. When I click on step over, the pointer directly executes all the steps in this particular method, and it comes and stops at line number 22. Okay, when I click on step into, this pointer will stop at line number 12. The step into word itself says that it basically steps into that method steps. It basically steps into this method, and it executes all the code in this method line by line. Whereas step over, in the sense, it will not step into this function. Instead, it directly executes all the code inside this search product, and it comes to line number 22 directly. That is what it basically means. So let me just remove all the breakpoints over here and come over here and click on step over. I'm clicking on step over now, so that the pointer is directly stopping at line number 22, and it is in the backend. It is basically executing all the steps inside step search product. Okay, so now we have select product from results. Okay, so this is also a method which is declared inside this particular class, which is Amazon homepage. Now, instead of step over, if I click on step into, let's see what happens. So if I click on step into, it is stepping into that method, and it got stopped at line number 22, so that you can actually, now if you click on step over, it basically goes line by line in that particular method. Okay, now here, if you want to see the values inside this all titles, you could basically see what are all coming in this particular all titles. Okay, you have multiple elements you're reading, so the XPaths of everything is coming up. So you're basically getting different remote elements, or n number of remote web elements inside this all titles. So if you could see the relevant parameters that are used to identify that particular web element, because you are using XPaths to identify the elements. So you are seeing the XPath as well for that particular element. Likewise, if I click on step over again, so now for each title, you're getting text out of it. So if you want to inspect what text is coming out of that each title, just let's say if I want to execute subline inside it. Okay, I want to execute only part of it. So select that, right click, do a right click, and here there is an option called as inspect or watch or execute. Let's explore what is inspect, what is watch, and what is execute. So if I click on execute, that particular step will be executed by the uh, Selenium backend, but it will not cross that line, but it basically will execute that and gives us the output. So as we are not printing anything, we are not able to see anything, but basically it executes that particular method. Okay, uh, I'll also show you another example for that. If you don't understand that, don't bother about that. But let's see the other options. One is inspect. So when if I click on inspect, it pops out a window for us where you could actually see the value that for what we have executed for. So this each title get text is basically giving us this particular value. Okay, So every time you do an inspect, it gives us that relevant value that we are trying to inspect. Okay, so now we try to inspect each title or get text, so it returned us this value. All right, so that is what inspect basically is. Inspect means we are actually inspecting the code that we want to actually look at. Okay, that is what basically inspect means. What does watch means is, so I'll do the same code that I want to select, do a right click and click on watch. Once you click on watch, this particular thing will get added to something called as expressions tab. Okay, so what is the use of adding particular thing to watch is, so let's suppose we are in a loop, so we want to explore the get text for all the titles on which we are basically iterating. Each title is a subset of all titles, right? So we are iterating through all the titles and getting the value of each title, and we are comparing against the value that we want to compare, right? So what is happening over here is, we are, once we added this to uh, add watch, it remains over there and it keeps on updating as we are iterating through the whole loop. Let's suppose I'll just step over here and I'll go to the next step now. uh, you just look at this, each title got get text is throwing an error because we don't have, we moved on to the next iteration. Okay, so each title is blank now. The next value from the all titles has to be assigned to the each title in this particular tab. Once this is executed, then we will move on to the next step. So when I click on step over, now look at this, we got some other value inside this. So now you doesn't actually need to select this and do inspect again for each and every iteration. Instead, if you add this to expressions, you could have a watch on these values what are coming, without much work or without inspecting every time. That is what the difference between inspect and watch is. Both will give out a value for us, whereas watch will keep on updating at every point of time you want to iterate through the loop, whereas inspect is a single activity. It just gives you the value at that instance of time. Is that clear?
Sir, can
Hello.
you tell one more time?
Yep. So there are three options for us. Okay. One is inspect, the other one is watch, and the other one is execute. Okay. Inspect and watch comes under the same category. So they will output us some value to us. Okay. So they will give us some value what we have inspected. Let's suppose I want to look at the value of this. Each title got get text, what are the values that are coming inside this each title got get text, because I'm getting some error over here. It is not going inside this particular if statement, even if I'm getting, even if this titles has the expected text. Okay, so that is the issue that we are facing, and now we are trying to debug that. So to try to debug that, I just have to fetch what are the values that are coming inside this each title code dot get text. So before that, let me just remove this. I'm removing this from the watch expression, and now I want to actually debug that. So let's suppose I have badminton game which I'm expecting in this titles. So but it's not going into each title dot click. Even this titles has badminton game, but it is not clicking on it. I'm just trying to debug that issue. So if I use inspect, every time I just have to select this, do control shift I, and now I'm getting something like boulder badminton, pickleball net, so which is not matching with my expected value. So I'll move on to the next step, and now I'll again come back here. In this particular step, I want to again go ahead and execute inspect. The shortcut for inspect is control shift I. I'm just pressing that. So now it is coming it as Hillary complete badminton set, something like that. So it's not coming again. I'm again going back to the next step and coming over here, and again I'm trying to inspect what is coming inside this. Do control shift I again, looking at the value that is coming over here. So with inspect, we have to do every time. in this particular loop. So you have to select that, you have to press Ctrl Shift I, and then you should be able to see what is the value that is coming, and then you have to check if the expected value is coming over here or not. Instead, if I add this to watch, it keeps on watching this value. Okay, so I'm adding this variable to, or this particular expression to watch. So now let's see what is happening. If I click on step over, this is getting updated. Okay, badminton gate, I'm not actually selecting it, inspecting it. Instead, I'm directly able to see the value coming over here. So watch will automatically inspect the value for us and updates that in the table. So it basically reduces some kind of work to us. Got it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is this clear for every one of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes.
Now let's see. uh, we will come over here. Okay, now uh, you understood what is step over and step into as well, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
there is something called as step written. What does this mean is, when you click on step written, it directly comes to the next line in the main file. Okay, we went into that particular method from here, right? Okay, we went into this method from here. So let me rerun this again. So the expectation now is we will step into this. Okay, we will step into this, and we stopped at line number 22, but unfortunately we stepped into this, and it has so much of code to execute, but you want to, don't go step over, or you don't want to execute this line by line. Instead, you want to directly execute that and come to this particular line. Okay, so in that case you have to use step written. So when you use step written, it basically comes to the next line in the same file from where you have gone. Okay, from here you gone to that method, and you don't want to execute all that method using step over. Instead, you want the pointer to come directly to the next line in this particular file, which is first Selenium code. Okay, in those cases you can use step over, so that it directly comes and stops at line number 24. Okay, let's see that in live now. So again, I'm debugging this, clicking as debug as Java application or for Selenium code. So now we are here. I'm clicking on step over, goes line by line, clicking on step over, goes line by line, and now clicking on step over, it will not execute anything inside that search product method. You will not be able to see any pointer stopping inside search product. If you use step into now, it goes into select product from results. Okay, because you used step into, so that it went into this particular method. Now if you want to step out of this, you don't want to execute all this code inside this particular method. Instead, you want to directly go to line number 24. The pointer should directly execute all the steps inside this particular method and come to line number 24. So when you use step return, you stepped into this method, but you want to return the step to this particular line number 24. So that is what basically step return means. You're taking the control back into the file from where you redirected to that particular pointer. That's what step return means. So when you click on step return, it executes everything inside that and comes to line number 24. That is what basically step return is. Got it?
Yes,
Hello.
sir.
Yes.
Now, now the only thing that you want to understand is execute. What executes will do. Let's see this as an example and see. Now I'm trying to inspect this value. I just want to see what is there inside this required product details. So I'm doing Control Shift I, and it is saying like required product details cannot be resolved to a variable, because this particular line is not yet executed. So it is throwing, it's not yet initialized with anything. This linked list is not at all created because we haven't executed line number 24 yet. Okay, but if I do select everything and right click on this, click on execute, So something happened, but still the pointer is at line number 24 only, right? The pointer is still at line number 24 only. And now if I right click on this, if I select this, do Control Shift I, or do variable. Why is this happening? Right click, select everything, execute. Yeah. So now see, we actually haven't executed this particular line, but still you could see some values inside this. We were just saying this. I guess there is an issue with Eclipse. Just now we saw the values for required product details, right? Right click, execute. Let me stop this. Debug as Java application. I'm really not sure what is happening. So now look at this. We haven't actually crossed this line. The pointer is still at line number 16 only, but we just used execute so that it actually launched this browser. Let me show you this again. So I stopped the browser. So we don't have any browser now. Now if I debug this, right click, debug as Java application, so that it stopped at line number 16. So we don't see any browser actually instantiated, and the driver itself is coming as null. So if I actually run this particular step, like I selected everything, right click, execute. So once if I executed this, the browser got launched, and initially we have seen driver as null, but now it got initialized with something, but still the pointer is at line number 16 only. Okay, it didn't cross this line, but we executed this particular line using the execute method. So once I click on step over, it again launches another browser. Okay, So if I don't execute this, it will not launch this browser again. Okay, it launched two browsers. Basically it should launch, every initialization should launch only a single browser, but we executed this particular line twice, using one time by selecting this line and clicking on execute, and for the second time we are just doing a step over so that it is going on to the next line. Got it? So that is what basically execute will do. Execute can run the particular selected statement without moving the pointer to the next step. But this is not, I'm not sure why this is not getting initialized. Let me just give a last try and see. So
Sir,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure your screen, the screen is, screen share is stopping in between. I'm not sure if it's just me or for everybody.
No, we can see. We can see everything. Yes, we can see.
Yes.
For me,
okay.
it's not clear actually. The contents are not clear. The screen is not clear. It's not stopping, but the screen is not clear.
Is it for everyone?
Okay.
It is
For us,
clear.
we see everything.
Okay, not sure, maybe
Okay.
individuals network issue. So you understood what is execute is, right? So execute basically execute this particular line without moving the pointer to the next line. Whereas you have seen what is step return, step over, step into, and what is watch and what is inspect, and when to use watch and when to use inspect. So when you are in loops, it is not always recommended to inspect the particular line for n number of times. Instead you can just add that to watch and keep on watching what are the changes that are happening to a particular variable or anything. Whereas inspect will be used when you are not looping and you just want to look at the value of a particular variable at that instance, and you're not going to watch that again at any other point in the at any other point of time. So that's where you are going to use inspect. So this is how basically we will go ahead and use the debug options and look at the values and see if that is working or not. And let me give you a simple example and how to identify whether the XPath is correct or not. So let's suppose I'm using this, I'm actually getting an error at this particular line, which is 12. And how do I know whether how do I know, well, like uh, I'm getting the issue at this particular point. Let me remove search in and see. So if I remove this search in, and let me save this script and let me run this and see what happens actually. So I'm running first Selenium code, and now we should be getting an error because we don't have such kind of XPath on the web page. Okay, so let's go back here, and if you click on this console, it is saying like no such element, and we are also getting the XPath, which is this one which we removed search in. And it is also saying like you can see that stack trace, and I also explained you what is stack trace is. It is going from line number 21 in first Selenium code to line number 12 in Amazon homepage code. From here it is calling the internal methods of Selenium tool, okay, which is not our interest, and we will not be able to see all these things. But the code that we have written is here, Amazon homepage. So here we are getting some error. So that's how we will recognize we got something, some issue at this particular point. So I added a breakpoint over here, and now let me debug by looking at the state of the application. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll again debug this, debug as Java application, or directly click on first Selenium code. So now we are debugging the application. Okay, so now we stopped over here, and we would like to, and this is the state of the application for us now. And in this particular application we are actually trying to find out what is search. Okay, I copied this and trying to inspect whether this is there or not. Inspect, do control F and control V. So we are not able to find out this particular element with this particular XPath. So there is a meaning, like there is an we can interpret that the XPath that we have given is correct. That is why it is throwing some error over here. Okay, and in the other case, if the XPath is correct and it is able to actually identify the element, but it's still, if the Selenium codes throw an error, you should go ahead and see what is the issue, relevant issue. Is that like element is not interactable, or what kind of issue that you are actually seeing? Based on that, your fixing things has to be. If it is not, if it is something like element not found, you have to fix the XPath or the locator. If it is not with the XPath or the locators, if it is not, if it is something like element is not interactable or something like that, you have to look for other options, like why it is not interactable. Do we need to use any other syntaxes to interact with this, or do we have any other options, something like that, which at this particular stage you might not be aware of, but we will discuss. Something like element not interactable, like if the element is inside an iframe, something, some sort of things has to be discussed, and then you will be able to debug and interpret what that issue is. Or else the other option is simply you can type the issue in the issue in Google, and you could also see for the results. So now if you got some error, copy that error from the stack trace, like no such element or something like that, and then you could see what could be the possible error that is causing this issue. Okay, that is how you have to effectively use this debugging thing, and you can fix that. So let's suppose if I have to fix the XPath. Okay, so this is the change in the XPath. So do this change in the script as well so that it runs perfectly. Something like that, you have to do it. Got it? Is debugging clear for everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Sir,
Yes,
while
sir.
we were debugging, there was a variable expression we saw one column, right?
Uh-huh.
Actually, I'm not in my screen. I'm not able to see that one. I don't know where to get that option. I mean, it's variable expression.
Okay, so go to Windows, show view, and here you
Okay,
will find everything. Okay,
but okay for you.
here is the expressions. If it is not automatically coming up for you, just go to show view and click on expression so that it comes for you again. If this is not auto populating for you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the option is here whenever you are not seeing console or any other options that you would like to see. So everything comes under Windows. Go to show view. Here you could see or add all the windows to your IDE. I mean, to bring up these kind of windows onto the IDE, you can use these options. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah,
And what is
so
the
let's,
use of variable?
what is the use of
Variable.
variable? Is something like, you, if you want to store something into it, or you, if you
No, no,
want to.
I'm not. I'm not asking this variable in the screen near the expression. We saw the variable, right? I'm asking about that
So
variable.
that is what we added, right? So we added
So
each title,
what are
and
the,
that is a variable, and and on the right side, whatever value that you see is the value of that particular variable.
okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. So if you go to Windows Show View Expressions, you have two things. One is the variable, like if you want to look at the value of this particular text. Okay, you are saying about this.
Yes, yes, I'm talking about that.
Okay, maybe you could add to this variables as well. Let me just give it a try for this. Debug as. So we are in this particular type, and it is actually giving us all the variables that we are using in this particular method where the debug point is there. So if you go to this show view expressions of variables and go to variables, so what are the variables that are there here? One is product type and the other one is product name. So it is displaying those values. along with the current instance of that particular method, in which class it is there. So let's suppose if I put a breakpoint at this particular point, and let me just try executing or continue the execution and see if once it reached this particular breakpoint. So now it reached this breakpoint. Again, go to show view, uh, expressions, and if you go to the variable, so it is giving us this particular variable, I mean the parameters or the attributes that is coming to this particular method. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, instead of inspect, can we use variables?
No, we cannot use variables because, so you are trying to inspect each title dot get text, not the values that are coming to this.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
I
inspect
got
works at any point of time. It doesn't restrict it to variable or any. It can also access the expressions like this. Each title
it.
got get text. It actually evaluates this. This is a method. Get text is a method that has been called on this web element. So if you want to get the value of the whole thing, you can just inspect this, where the variables will not be able to do.
Oh, I got the difference now. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Sir, I don't see the expressions in show view in my Eclipse.
Is that
Yeah.
it should definitely come under Windows show view, or else do another,
Oh,
click on other,
okay.
and type expressions.
Yeah.
Are you able to find one?
Yes. Now I can see.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's what it is. So we completed the debugging stuff now. Is everything clear for you?
Yes.
Okay, now let's move on to understanding interacting with different elements on the web pages. Okay, so I just collected different websites for interacting with different things. So I'll mark this as, I'll create a new class name, and I'll do it as checkboxes. Okay, let's understand how the checkboxes basically work. And I'll create package as interactions. Let's create a main method inside this, and let's create finish. And I just want to use the uh, driver code that we already have developed. I'll just copy paste that. Control D. Shortcut to delete any line is Control D. Control Shift O is to organize inputs. So if you want to delete any unused imports, or if you want to add any unused imports, I mean used imports, you can simply click Control Shift O, so that all the imports will directly get added. Okay, so we have this initialize driver, and let's make the URL as a parameter to this. We are making this URL as a parameter so that we could directly use this Selenium code, and this expects some URL dot amazon.com. So let us copy this particular line, boxes, and paste it. Do Control S. Now we can pass the URL that we want to actually drive through. Just give me a second. Just give me a second.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Madhuri.
Okay,
Sir
okay.
is not there.
Oh, okay, okay.
So he is taking few minutes off. So can we discuss about the errors what we are getting through? That okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Hello?
Maheshwari?
Hi. Madhuri, are
Maheshwari?
you able? Yes. What I'm
Oh,
getting
no.
error is actually for me, it's opening all the pages. Amazon pages opening, like a first product, second product, everything opening. When it comes to in the console, I cannot fetch the data. I'm getting the first object data, first product data. But it comes to second product, I'm not able to get the, I'm not able to print the product detail. It's showing the
Same
error.
here. Same
Maybe
here, Maheshwari. I'm getting the first
uh,
product details, but not second.
But it's traversing to the second product.
what are the?
Is it traversing to the second product?
Yes, yes. I'm able to open the Amazon page. Actually, I'm getting first page is getting opening, and the second product page also opening.
But it's not
And but
printing the values.
yes,
Yes.
So what
it's
error
saying
it is?
the same kind. What you are getting the same error. I'm also getting the
Okay,
same
so
error. I'm getting.
maybe the path just now sir said no, so path may be incorrect. So for me it
If
was same.
not, hmm,
Yeah, for me it was same. So like
if
in the while creating second product, while
hmm,
printing second product, we should give correct dynamic path. So
if path
is
is
it
not correct, it not may
There
it
is here.
won't be open, right? Okay.
What's that? Are you
Nothing. So
running
we are
into an
just
issue?
No,
yes.
just
We
we
are
are
discussing
discussing.
about see what we are getting. You can carry
Okay,
on, sir. Thank you.
okay, all right. So let's start uh, interacting with the web pages. So let me know once you're able to see my screen back again. Are you able to see now?
Yes, sir.
yes.
Okay, so the first thing that we want to discuss now is checkboxes. Okay, so checkboxes, basically how do you interact with checkboxes in the normal application? So we will just do a click, right? If you want to select that, we will just do a click on it. If not, we will just again, if you want to unselect that, we will again click on it. That's all what we are going to do it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there is an application for which we can go ahead and use. Let me just go to this https www.calculator.net mortgage payoff calculator. So here we have these radio buttons. So let's talk about radio buttons, or let's start with checkboxes. Where the checkboxes will be, I guess they should be inside interest calculator. interest calculator. Here it is. We don't have a checkbox here. Interest calculator. Yeah, here is a checkbox, right? So we will just see by selecting this and unselecting this. How do you actually select this and unselect this? So let me just use this URL. So we want to use this. So the first test is we want to pass this URL, and if we run this particular script now, you should be able to see the URL is launching, or the web page is launching. So now it is basically launching the requested page. Now the next step is we have to identify this particular checkbox, and then we have to click on it. So once we click on it, it is getting selected or unselected. So that's a basic user operation that we do, right? Now let's get the XPath for this. Click on inspect. Try to get the XPath for this. Click on it. So can I use this class name? Do you think this is unique? So whenever I ask for XPaths as identifiers, it's your turn to come up and say me what is XPath for that.
I think class is not unique. Maybe.
So let me give it the rate. So it is showing up two things. So one is this one unidentified thing, and one. So this is not actually the unique identifier. What else can be used? Can we
ID.
use this input
Type,
IP
type.
Yes.
ID?
ID, use ID better. ID is better, I think.
So I'm going ahead and using the ID. So now I'll do something like driver dot find element by dot id, and I'm passing the string. Control V. I don't want to pass whole stuff, right? So I'm just passing only small part of it. I'm just doing dot click. This is to select this particular step. Okay. So once I click on select, so once I do a click on it, so the expectation is if it is uh, let's see what happens. So I'll directly close this. Instead I'll just use, this is not something which you are aware of. Let's ignore this. Let me right click, run as Java application. I'm clicking on OK. And now if you see, is that actually clicking on it? No, it is not clicking on it. It is throwing us some error. What it is? ID captional. It's not able to find out with this ID. What could be the error? Do we have this element with ID? Or let's go ahead, right click, inspect, do control F, control V. Again we have two things with the same ID. Okay, one is this and the other one is this. So ID is this, but this is not ID. This is ID. Driver dot find element.
We can give one more attribute value.
Okay.
Usually ID will be unique, right? So
Yeah, ID is unique, but
here for name also they use the same, and for ID also they use the same thing.
Tag name and ID. Can we try?
look at this. When we are inspecting on input, it is not actually highlighting the right thing. It is actually highlighting when we are inspecting on span. This is on what we have to actually click on.
Hmm.
So now what we will do is we will basically come from the label to the bottom. We will use this ID, but let's go back to the parent and come back to span. Okay, so rate ID is equal to end. Now go back to the parent and come back to the child. Hello.
We can't hear you, sir.
Can't hear you.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, for everyone, I think I can't hear you.
So we can't hear you.
Send message better.
I think he.
Hello, sir.
Can't hear.
Yes, same here.
Sir, we
Everybody
can't
leave.
hear you.
Yes, it is. I think no one can hear it.
I think he also can't hear.
Sir,
Hello?
hello. Oh, I think
Yes.
even I'm not hearing anything.
Is there any other way?
Don't know. Just keep on like maybe messaging.
Hello, sir.
Everyone message yaar.
Yeah, maybe everybody can private message or just everyone.
In the recording also it will not record, right?
Maybe it will record because he is recording, right?
Mm.
No audio. We can see video. I think sir is on mute.
If anyone has Shweta number, call her and she might call sir.
Yeah.
I called consultancy and I asked her to convey the message to Mohan, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hello. Hi, Shweta.
Hi, Mohan. Can you hear me? People are unable to hear your voice. Hello, Mohan. You're on mute, sir, if you're talking.
He's not able to hear us. We are trying to reach from long
But
time,
he's on
Shweta.
mute, right? Mohan is on mute. Is he telling any class?
Yes,
Class is
Yeah, he
going on,
has.
but
class is going. Class is
Okay,
going.
let me call him on his mobile numbers. Let me see if he answers. Okay, 1 second. Mohan, if you're telling, we cannot hear you, sir. Hello? I think he left
Hello.
or he's. Yeah, now we can hear you, Mohan.
Hello.
Hello? Hi, Mohan.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Now
Can
we can
anybody
hear
Now we
see?
you.
can hear you.
Yes, we can hear it now.
Are you able to see my screen at least?
We are
No,
seeing
sir.
this.
Not now.
Not now.
Not now.
Not now,
Yeah,
you're dumb.
now.
Earlier,
Is
you guys are seeing the screen, but we are unable to hear you what you're explaining.
Yes.
Yes, now.
is that visible now?
Yeah, it is visible. Yeah.
Okay. So we are actually at we identified the XPath for this checkbox, right? So let me just quickly run this and put a breakpoint
Hello?
over it. Hello.
Sir, we didn't listen any of this one.
Okay, I'm just repeating. So we opened a website, right? Like we opened this mortgage calculator website, and we are just trying to click on this checkbox. Okay, so that's the whole point over here. So now what we have done is we initialized a driver. To that driver we passed an URL, and to that URL we are actually uh, we launched an URL, or we initialized a driver, and to that driver we are actually trying to identify an element. This element is nothing but that checkbox, right? So this is the checkbox that we are trying to identify. So we just do a right click, and we just clicked on inspect, control F, and then we use this XPath like control C and control V. Okay, so now we were able to actually identify this XPath now. So earlier we tried with the ID, but this ID is not working, or this input is not working, because when we hover on this, it is not actually identifying the right element, right? So it is identifying the element only when we go to label and coming back to the span, right? From the input we are going to label, and from the label we are coming back to the span. That is what we are doing it. So we are trying to find at the rate id, and we gave the id, and from this id we are going to the parent label, and from the label we are coming back to the span. Okay, so this is what basically we are doing. So this is the expert that we are trying to find out. So once that is done, we are trying to click on it. So the click on it means it is like doing a selection or unselection. So when we click on it, it got unselected. Again, when we clicked on this, it got selected. It's something like that, right? So that is what it is happening. So when you say expand this, so when we click on this, it's like selecting and unselecting. That is fine. So now when we go back here, so I took input checkbox and I'm clicking on it. Okay, so now let's see what happens. Let's remove all these things, and let's see if that is selected or not. Okay, I'm doing a right click, run as Java application. So initially, once the application is launched, it is in clicked state, right? Now we are unchecking that. So now to be more precise, let me add some thread here so that you could see something like that. Red dot, not sleep. Let's give it as press run as Java application. Let's give it as 5 seconds so that you could see the action actually. Right click, run as Java application. So now the application is launched, and we are waiting for 5 seconds, and then we are actually trying to click on that particular checkbox so that this got unselected. Okay, to actually know whether the checkbox is selected or not, there is a method called as selected. Okay, so I'll just do a sysout to know the state of it. Right click sysout. So when I used this particular method, control V, dot is selected is a method that is available. This says whether the checkbox is selected or not. Okay, once I selected this and save this, so if I run this particular instance, let's see what happens. Run as Java application. So now we launched this application. So we are waiting for a few seconds. We unchecked that, and if I go back to the application and see, once this got unselected, we are getting is selected as false because that is no more is in selected state. Okay, this is how basically we interact with checkboxes. Checkboxes is nothing but dot click is the only method that we get to, because we will just click this or unselect this. Okay, so that is all about checkbox. Is that clear?
Like first, if it is in the selected mode means it will uncheck it, or what it will do.
Yeah, it depends on the condition that you basically will write. So if you say if this is unselected, go ahead and click it. If that is not unselected, don't click it. You have to develop something like that.
Okay. And why here you assigned that element to the include checkbox? You took the variable, right? Why you took that one?
Which one? What is that line number you're talking about?
Line number 15.
Okay, we
It,
assign this to variable.
uh,
Why will we assign something to a variable?
yeah, to hold the value line.
Yeah, because if it is a single action, like if I just want to click on it, I can use directly dot click on it. But I'm
Yes.
using this multiple instances, so I it's always a better idea to assign this to a variable and use that instance. So if you directly do direct driver dot find element dot click driver dot find element dot is selected, what happens every time it tries to find out this element, which actually takes some time. Once we actually find out that element, use that instance and just do action on it.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yes. Like for everything we have to do like this, or maybe for checkbox we need to, if we need to check more than two elements, for at that time we have to use the variable, which is the.
Now, whenever you are actually using that reference multiple, so you're actually using this web element n number of times, right?
Yes.
So in that case, you could basically go ahead and use that instance. So you're using this instance for at multiple instances. Okay, so
Mhm.
then it is always good idea to assign this to a variable and use it.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, got it. Thank you.
yeah. And then the next thing is we are talking about is we talked about checkboxes. Next, let's talk about radio buttons now. So let me create a new class.
Sometimes in the checkbox we need to check more than two. We have to select more than one value, right? What we like for that? How we have to do?
It all if you have multiple checkboxes,
Uh-huh.
uh, you just have to identify them with XPaths, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what. So if there are multiple checkboxes, clicking on the checkbox just depends on the XPath that you're actually using. Okay, if this is XPath, it has some unique identifiers, and if that is a different checkbox, it will have some different unique identifiers. Correct?
Okay, okay, I will try it, and in the next class I will ask it.
So now let's talk about uh, radio buttons. Okay, so let's see how these radio buttons basically work. So radio buttons also, it's just again a simple click. On radio buttons as well, we will just do a simple click. So let's copy again this driver initialization, which is common for everything. So we initialize a driver and we will launch in particular URL using this driver instance. So we also have to create some instance variable with driver and use this driver instance to find the elements. So to find out the radio buttons, let's go back and find some calculator where we have radio buttons. Calculator.net. To get calculator. Here we do have so we have multiple radio buttons over here. Let's try clicking on this and see whether they are selected or not. Okay, so let's inspect the elements first because we need the identifiers to identify the elements. So I'm going ahead and trying to inspect these checkboxes. Okay, so again this is looking similar to the same. Okay, now we actually will try with id is equal to value. So beginning value is a unique parameter, right? So let's go with value, control F, double forward slash star, and at the rate beginning, and we will go back to this, we'll go to its parent, which is label, and come back to the span. Okay, let's do that. So parent is label, and we will come back to span, which is the child element of it. Okay, so this basically identifies this radio button. So copy this, go back here, and you just need to use driver dot find element I dot xpath and give the xpath that you want to give. Again, when you see something like this which is redundant, just give single quotes instead of double quotes and give dot click. That's all. So once if I run this, run as Java application, let's see the output. Let me add some thread dot sleep so that the action would be visible for you. Thread dot sleep and give some time as 5 seconds and add an exception, which is add throws declaration exception, and just do right click. Let's close this and do right click, run as Java application. Okay, click on OK. Oh, we need to change the URL too, right? We don't have that particular radio button here. What is the URL for that? We haven't changed the URL, so we are still redirecting to the same website. PS control. Where is that? It's in mortgage calculator, right? Investment calculator. Yeah. So this is the URL that we have to give for this particular radio button. So select this, do control V, control S, run as Java application. So if you run this as Java application, so it's waiting for 5 seconds and then it basically clicked on beginning now. So this is how you can select a particular radio button. And now let's try for I'll, you understood, like we are just performing the actions on the elements and asserting all of them. We will do all that stuff at one time, so that we will differentiate the actions and assertions. So now we want to know whether this is selected or not, right? We clicked on it, but we want to know whether this is selected or not. So those are common methods which can be used across all the elements, and we will discuss them later. For now, we will just go ahead and do the actions, the required actions on different elements. So now we can act on radio buttons, we can act on checkboxes, we can actually act on buttons. Now look at drop downs. So how to actually select the values from the drop downs is something that you have to learn now. So now let's go to the drop downs. Let's create a separate class and name this as drop downs. Then click on finish, control D, driver, dot sleep. Okay. Let's initialize the global variable. Use this global variable, paste it over here. Now what we're gonna do is we want to select some value from the drop down. Okay, so how do I do that? Go back here. Let's suppose we want to select something from this drop down. So the first thing that we have to do is inspect the element or inspect this particular drop down. So it has a property named as id compound. Okay, that is an unique one. So let's copy this, control A, control C, and use this. So driver dot find element by dot id, and what is id that we want to use? Compound is id that we want to use. So this is id which uniquely identifying that particular element. So now press Ctrl 1, assign this to a new local variable and name this as compound dropdown. Compound dropdown. Now let's Ctrl C. Now we have a class named as select. Okay, select sc is equal to new select. So we use this particular class to actually select the values from the drop down. Okay, this is the default class provided by the Selenium to interact with different drop down. I mean, to interact with the drop downs, and interacting with the drop downs has different methods. Okay, click on select, and we need to pass the element on which we want to select the values, or we need to pass the drop down object here. So now again, just rename this as select object, something like that. Select object. Now copy this name back here. Dot. We have different elements. I mean different methods over here. So deselect by index, deselect by value, deselect by visible text. So these are complements of these methods: select by index, select by value, select by visible text. Now let's explore these three things which are very important. So let's start with select by visible text. So select by visible text basically selects the value from the drop down based on the text that we see in that particular drop down. So in this particular drop down, we have different values like annually, semi-annually, quarterly, monthly, and all the things. Okay. Now, if I want to select monthly, let's select daily from this drop down and see whether this is working or not. So I'm passing the text as daily. Okay. Control S. The dot clip is there. Now let's quickly run this and see the output. Okay. I'm closing this particular browsers now. And now we are actually running this particular instance, run as Java application. So once So we open and it is waiting for 5 seconds here, and now it should be able to select the value from the drop down. Okay, is that an error? Yeah, this is an error. What is the error? So we got some error. Let's see what it is. Unable to locate element, method selector, method css selector. Why it is css selector? We used by.id and we passed compound. No such element. Unable to locate element. Drop down stud Java. A line number 18. It is compound only, right? Inspect. Let's select this. ID is okay. ID is CC compound, not C compound. We removed C. It is CC compound. Let's close this. Rerun this. Right click. Run as Java application. Click on OK. So now we launched the application. We gave like 5 seconds, and now it's selected daily, right? So now we were able to select based on the text. Selecting an element based on the text is nothing but what we basically see. In terms of DOM, what is this text means? If you consider what in terms of DOM, text is nothing but what you see between the tags. So between this option opening tag and closing tag, you would see some text, right? This is basically text means. So this Selenium uses this text and selects the relevant option inside this drop down. Okay, that is what basically text means. Select by visible text is nothing but visible text means the text that is coming in between the tags, between the opening and closing tags. So option is the opening tag ending over here, and this is the closing tag. In between the opening tag and closing tag we have annually. Okay, it uses this to select that particular value from the drop down. Okay, that is what basically select by visible text means. And we also have another method, which means it has something called as select by value, right? We have something called as select by value. What does this mean? Select by value also expects a string which is value. The value is nothing but this one. So every option tag has something called as an attribute, which is value attribute. Okay, it has an value attribute and it has some value which is annually for the first element. So it uses these parameters. It checks for these attribute and its value. Based on this value, it selects that particular drop down value. So in this case, the text and value are same, but we have some cases, or we may come across some cases where the value will be different. So let's say compound annually. If the value is compound annually, and the text is annually. So if you want to use this method named as select by value, you have to pass the string as compound annually instead of annually for this particular method to select the right value from the drop down. So you're getting me right. So selecting by value means using this attribute. So we have to pass the attribute value of this value. Okay, when you want to select the drop down value using text, you have to pass the text that is present in between the tags. So that's the whole difference. Is that clear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So that is the difference between the two methods, select by visible text and select by value. Select by value uses the value of value attribute. Okay, we need to pass the string of value attribute, whereas select by visible text expects the text that is present in between the tags. So in this case, the both are same, but there are cases where the value will be different and the text will be different. Text may look annually, but value may look compound annually. So if you are using select by value, to select this annually from the dropdown, you have to pass compound annually. Got it? So
Yes.
that is select by value method. So if I run this, let's see what happens. Run as Java application and click on OK. So it is selecting. It selected semi-annually based on the text that we have passed. So now we also have some other method, okay, which is select by index. We have this compound drop down select dot select by index. Okay, so the index is expecting an integer. Integer is nothing but every value in the drop down is assigned with an index. It means the first value, the annually, is indexed as 0, semi-annually is indexed as 1, quarterly is indexed as 2. Okay, if you want to select quarterly from the drop down based on index, you have to pass the integer value as 2, because quarterly is present at index 2. The drop down value starts with index 0 and it keeps on incrementing by 1. So it starts with 0, then comes 1, then comes 2. So you have to pass the index as 2 to select the value 3 from the drop down, because the indexes starts from 0. Okay, that is what basically index means. So if you want to run this particular code, right click, run as Java application and click on OK. Now you could see it selects the third value from this particular drop down, which is quarterly. Okay, which is the third value from this drop down, because we passed the index as 3. Got it? So this is how, these are the three different methods that are available with select by index, select by value, and select by visible text. And also you can explore the other methods that are available, which are complementary methods for select. We also have deselect. So let's just try deselect by value. So let's see what this is giving. Select by value and deselect by value. I'm passing it as daily here, control C and control V, control S, and then just do control S. Right click as run as Java application. And now let's see what happens. Okay, so what this is saying is, so basically deselect is applicable when you have an option to multi-select the values. Okay, so this is what I would like to convey. So deselect works only when we have multiple selection options. There are some drop downs where, like if you take an example of combo box, there you have an option to basically select multiple values from the drop down. Okay, in those cases these complementary methods can be used with the select by visible text. So this particularly is saying this: you may deselect options of multi-select. Okay, multi-select drop downs is a different scenario where you will be able to you can select multiple values from the drop down, which we call them as combo boxes. So you can use these methods over there, and we will actually see them in that when we encounter that particular combo boxes or multi-select fields. So let's suppose get all selected options. So this get all selected options and all these things. So select, deselect all, deselect value by index, deselect by value, get all selected options. These are all applicable for multi-selects. Okay, whereas which are complementary methods for select. Okay, when you select it, you could unselect that when it is a multi-selected option. Let's look at what is this get options. Okay, get options is basically giving us control 1 send statement to a local variable, and this is returning as an options. What I'll do is I'll iterate through these options and try to print out the text inside this. For int I is equal to 0, I less than options dot length, sorry, size, and I plus plus. Set this particular thing out options of I, get of I, get the particular index. Okay, this will basically, let's see what happens when we run this. Run as Java application, click on OK. So it is launching a browser, and now if you go back to the console, so it is waiting for a few seconds. So it is giving all the objects of that particular options. Okay, id is compound, tag name is equal to option, so it is giving multiple objects. These objects are nothing but the option objects. So under select, for every, you know, under select, if you go to this select, under this select we have everything defined as an object. This is option is one object, this is one object. Now there is a method called as get attribute. Okay, there is a method called as get attribute. This get attribute is basically expecting a string, which is the attribute name. Let's suppose if you take this particular option, it has the attribute as value. Attribute is value, and the value is value for this particular attribute is annually. Okay, if you take this for this particular table, attribute is id and its value is credit, what is this, CRE turn rate. Okay, so this is the attribute and this is attribute value. So this get attribute will basically gets us the value of a particular attribute. So if I want to get the value of this attribute, which is value, and I just need to pass this value. So if I pass the attribute name, which is value, and this particular get attribute will get us the value of that particular attribute name. Okay, in this case, if you take this particular tag, in this case the attribute name is value and its value is annually. If you take in this case, the attribute is id and the attribute's value is cc compound. Okay, using attribute, and if you pass the id as a string, it gives us the cc compound. So that is what basically get attribute means. Now if I run this particular syntax, let's see what happens. So if I go back here, you could see instead of objects, it is actually getting the values of the attribute name value. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
That is what basically get attribute means. So these are all the methods that are available with the select, which is not multi-select. If it is a multi-select where the user has option to select multiple options, there comes the methods called as deselect, deselect by index, deselect by visible text, deselect by value, and all these things. Okay, we will also come and explore them later. And now the next important element that we want to talk about is uh, so whenever we want to perform drag and drop operations. Okay, so there is a class called as actions in Selenium which actually performs these kind of actions. So how could we treat drag and drop as? So let me fetch a website for drag and drop. Let me create a class for that first. Create a class and name it as drag and drop. And before that, let me just get you website. Access. Okay.
So just now I saw that this while running Chrome driver, then Chrome on Windows, and you said like that three, four options you got. So I was also getting that one. So like, what is that, or is it like expected?
What is it? Chrome on Windows?
Yeah, Chrome on Windows, and then some IDs I'm getting, and then what I gave XPath, no? So it is showing me for five times, like five lines of that same, and ID is
Oh,
different.
you mean what we have seen before
Yeah,
this particular output. So those are all the
yeah.
objects, the options object. So if you could see this drop, what are those drop downs? So options dot get I is a web element. Okay, this is the list of web elements, and out of these web elements, we are getting one web element. So what you see is the identifier for that web element. Okay,
Okay,
so that is
but
basically web element, which
mhm,
is options in our case.
okay. When I was executing the program, right, which you told us,
Mhm.
so that time I got this. So I was not aware of this. So
Okay,
yeah,
so
even
those are web elements basically.
okay, okay.
Okay, now let's move ahead with the drag and drop, and then we will come back and see about multi-select that we were just talking about. Let me rename this. I
So
renamed this.
nothing wrong to get that, right?
Sorry. I mean, it depends on the requirement. So if the requirement is to actually get the attribute values, so you modified the code on the same lines. So if you have something else to be performed on the web elements, you have to do that. So there is no point just printing out the web elements, right? So every web element, maybe we will read the web elements to perform some action on the web elements, correct?
Mm, yes.
So here the requirement is, let's say I want to print out all the values from the drop down. So what I'm doing is I'm just iterating through every object under that particular drop down, and I got all the child elements of that select by just passing the relevant XPath, and then I'm iterating through them, and I'm just printing out the attribute value using the method called as get attribute. So in case if you have multi-select, you have to select all the options. So if you have to do through the code, you have to find the XPath that identifies all the selection options or all the options under that multi-select, and you have to iterate through all the elements and click on them. So once you click on them using control, you will be able to multi-select them. Got it? So
Okay.
when we iterate through some set of elements, it should have some purpose. Why do we iterate through elements? In the other case, we actually automated the Amazon, right? So in Amazon also we iterated through all the cards on the page. Why we iterate through all the cards? Because we want to find out a card which we want to click on, right? That's the reason we are iterating through all the cards and finding out the relevant card that we are looking for. When once we found that, we are just clicking on it and we are going to the next page. So there is a purpose of iterating through all the cards on that Amazon web homepage. The purpose is we are trying to fetch or we are trying to search one card with a particular name, right?
Okay. So
It's something.
from which line we are getting that, like the object we are getting, from which line it is getting?
So we are getting from this particular line 24. 24, what it is doing, it is trying to uh, get all the options. So get options is an inbuilt method that can be applied on the drop downs, which will give us all the child elements of the parent select. Okay, under the select we will have multiple options, right? You have seen the parent tag is select. Under the parent tag you have all the options. So get options will give us the objects of all the actions.
Okay.
Okay, it returns the web set of web elements or list of web elements which are the options under that particular select parent tag.
Okay. This I got, sir. But like just now I said. like I got the same while executing the previous program which you asked us to do. So I was not using their get options and all those
No,
methods.
get options will be there only for select, not for any
Okay.
others. You can use find elements if you want to find out similar elements which have similar XPaths. Here also you go ahead and use find elements under the parent select tag, but select will have this inbuilt options available for us.
Okay.
Okay,
So with
here
find
there are
also
two
will give
options.
object.
Yeah,
Okay.
find
Okay.
elements will
Okay.
give us list of web elements similar to get
Okay.
options. Okay,
Okay.
so
So
this
got it.
is just
Thank
an additional implementation provided by. Don't think this is applicable for every elements. This is applicable only for the drop down, and also the drop down should have options. Okay, under the select, options under the select, in the sense I hope you understood and you have seen that. If you go to this particular website,
Yes, I got it. Yes.
you got that right. Okay, so
Yes.
now
Yes.
let's look at drag and drop. Let me fetch a website for this, and think this is something that should work out. I don't exactly remember. Key themes. UI underscore. Themes. Oh god. Sample dragon. Top sites. Sites. Okay, so we could go ahead and try this. So just drag drop this. Okay, so we can select this particular option, click on it, and move it here. So once we launch this particular website, so here, okay, so here we would be able to move these elements from here to here. Okay, so this is what we have to perform now. So if you look at this, there are two things. One is from object, from where you want to drag the object from, and the other is the destination, to where you want to drag or put this object to. Okay, so we need the source location and we need the destination location, so that we drag that object from the source location to the destination location. Okay, that's all what we are going to do now. So we need to identify the XPaths for this and also the destination. So that's the first step. So before that, let's just do few things. So the initial steps is we just need to use these two steps, which is initialization of the driver, and also we need an instance variable for the driver. So we took this as an initial variable, and also we need to change the website URL, right? Where is that? We want to use this website variable, use this here, which is drag and drop. Okay, so this is the website that I want to go ahead and use. So now we are all good. So we successfully launched the website. Once the website is launched, as I told you, I need two things. uh, so the source web element. Okay, we need source that is equal to driver dot find element I dot xpath, and you just need to pass the xpath of the source. Similarly, for the destination too, we have an XPath. So this is the destination source. So driver dot find element I dot XPath, and you have to pass the destination XPath. So these are the two things that you have to go ahead and find out. So I'm going back to the website. So what is my source now? Inspect. So this is my source. I need to select this. So what is this? Under li, I have this image. For now I'll just hard code, or let's read all the elements. uh, let's try moving all these objects from here to the trash. What I will do is UI is id gallery. I'll take this control C, control F, double forward slash star, and at the rate id is equal to gallery. So id is equal to gallery. I found this, and under this I have the image tags. So now I got all the four images. So these are our sources. We need to drag and drop each source to the destination. Got it? So these web elements will become our sources. So I'll go ahead and give this XPath, and I use find elements because I'll change this to list of web elements. I'm changing this to list of web elements. Let me add this import. And now what is our destination? Destination is this trash box. So go ahead and use this id as trash, control C, go back here. Let me just at the rate control B. This is the destination. So now what we have to do, we have to iterate through all the web elements in that particular source. Because we need to drag drop all the images from the source to the destination. So I'm iterating, I'm giving it as web element each image, and also what is this is the list of web elements that we have got, control B. And now here comes our code. So for each image we have to move from the destination to the source. Okay, so this is very important because this is something different that what you have not seen till now. Okay, so there is a class called as actions in Selenium. Okay, actions, let me create an instance for this. Actions object is equal to new actions. these actions, we have to pass something called as driver. We have to pass the driver instance to this. So just hover on this and import this actions org.openqa.selenium.interactions. So because we are just performing interactions, so it comes from interactions class, just import this. So once this is imported, use this object, control C dot. So just look at this. How do we do drag and drop basically? So we just click this, hold this, and we move this, and we will release, right? This is what we basically do. We will click and hold the object, move to the destination, release there. So that is what we do when we perform drag and drop. So you could find out the same options over here. Click and hold. Where do you want to click and hold? You want to click and hold the source, right? Dot move to element. Where do you want to move this element to? You want to move this element to the destination. Okay. And what you want to do over there, you want to release there. Okay, you have to release there. Okay, and now after releasing there, what you want to do,
Come back again to source.
dot build dot perform. So these are the default actions that you have to give for actions, because these are not single actions, these are sequence of actions. Okay, we are doing a click and hold, we are moving to the destination, we are releasing there. So this build is used to actually sequence the actions that we have constructed, and perform is nothing but it performs those actions. So build will construct or put the sequence of actions that you have constructed into a sequence, and perform will perform those actions. Okay, so now this particular code should do us the action that we want to do, which is like drag and drop. Let's add some weight for just visibility purposes, and let's run this code and see how the output looks like. So I'm just running this and save as like, so it is launching the website now, and now it waits for, I don't think it happened. So it is throwing us an error. Let's see what is this. No such element, unable to locate, at the rate id is equal to trash. What is the next path for this? Control F, double forward slash star, rate id is equal to h4. Okay, so this is not where we want to actually drag and drop. We want to full division. This is trash, and this is h4 tag, which we don't want to bother about. Where is this particular element? There is equal to trash. Nice Java application. So we are taking each image out of the source. We are clicking and holding on it. We are moving to the destination and release dot build dot perform. Okay, but why it is not able to find that the read ID is equal to trash. Okay, let's give it debug over here. Okay, let's run this in debug mode and see what this output is. Debug as Java application.
So in this case, we can instead of XPath, we can use CSS path also, like
Yes,
by
yes, we can.
ID also.
Yeah. So we need to pass uh, the parameter for release as well. So release also expects a target. So where do you want to release this? So there could be the mistake. I hope so. Let's see whether this happens or not. Right click, run as Java application, but still ID trash. The error is still irrelevant. It opened the website. Nope, it's still running. Let's remove these threads. Let's close all the websites. Right click, run as Java application. It throws us an error. What does the error says? Let's carefully see what the error is saying. Unable to locate element. ID trash. Xpath at the rate ID. But if we have at the rate ID. Okay, that's fine. Let's debug this and see the state of the application at which it is coming. Okay. Now right click, run as, we debug as Java application. Okay. So we launched the application now. Now, okay, it is throwing an exception there only. It's not given coming to the next. Are we writing this in the right way? Okay, let's put a breakpoint here. So it is not even coming to the next line. Right click. Let us add an implicit wait. Driver dot manage dot times out dot implicit wait. Let's give it as 5 seconds dot times unit dot time unit dot milliseconds. Mhm. Why don't I see anything? So you need to click on this drag and drop, I guess. Inspect this. What's this drag and drop right there? Drag and drop. So let us click on this. I guess sometimes it is not logging. And star x is equal to drag and drop. As is equal to. I'm adding a second parameter because uh, only text is matching 5 elements. So I'm just using this, and I'll add a click statement on this before. Okay, so let's see if this works. Driver dot find element y dot xpath. What is our xpath? This is our xpath. Using dot click on this. So now again let's debug this. So that is one issue that we noticed, because the images are not actually coming up. So I'm debugging as Java application and see if everything is loading fine. So now we got the application, it got maximized, and it should click on drag and drop, and now we have images. And now I want to check whether this is throwing any exception or not. Just I'll select the whole thing, right click and click on execute. So when I clicked on execute, it is not throwing any error. So I'll just do let it's still executing. It is throwing an exception. No such element exception. Why there is no such element? Copy this, go to the website, click inspect, control F, control V. Okay. Now we are not able to identify this element, but this is there on the web page. Okay, now let's slowly scroll up and see why this is happening. It could be because of an iframe. Okay, so this is, we got a good example, and let's explore this. So what is the problem now? We have the XPath. The XPath is exactly working. Okay, and but this particular ID is under an iframe. Okay, this ID is under an iframe. Okay, so that is the reason whenever the elements are under an iframe, even if you give the XPath, it will not be able to find those elements. It could find those elements only when you switch to that iframe. So to switch to that iframe, so basically you have to find out the iframe first. Okay, you have to find out the iframe with a unique parameter. Let's take the class as a unique parameter for the iframe. So you got it right. So whenever there are objects inside an iframe, so how do you find out whether the object is inside an iframe or not? So the first thing is you will face these kind of issues. So you have the XPath which is exactly working, and you know it is working, but still if it is not working, so the one check that you have to do is you have to check whether it is there inside an iframe or not. Okay, so to do that, what you have to do is uh, you have to find out an identifier for the text path. Identifier is nothing but the similar way how do you find out for the other web elements. So for that iframe, I found out this particular XPath. Okay. This is used to find out the elements inside an this is used to, this particular identifier used to find out this iframe. Now again, write the XPath for that iframe. What is that XPath? Driver dot find element by dot XPath, and this is the identifier for that XPath, and I'll name this as web element. Okay, what is the name? Iframe, we will name it as iframe lazy load. This is the iframe. So to find out this particular destination, what you have to do is driver dot switch to dot iframe. Switch to dot frame. So this is the syntax to switch to that particular iframe. So once you use this syntax, it it switches the control into that iframe, and then you will be able to identify the elements inside that iframe. Now let's try debugging this and see what happens. So at least now you should be able to actually find out the elements inside that iframe, or at least you should be able to find out the destination object. At least it shouldn't throw us any error. So what's this? Okay, it's already running, I guess. Okay, let me stop everything and rerun this. I'm stopping everything, and now I'm closing this. Right click, debug as Java application. So once you debug this as Java application, so it is opening a website, switching it, clicking on drag and drop, and now it should stop at a breakpoint. Okay. Oh, still it is throwing it. Why is it still throwing an exception? Let's go ahead and see. Where is it throwing an error again? Stale element reference. Element is not attached to the page document. What is that element? 25. Okay, so don't read this. Read this iframe because it is loading only after clicking the drag and drop, right? So only after clicking the drag and drop link, we are actually getting this iframe, right? So let's give it a try. Right click, debug as Java application. So we are encountering all the issues and we are fixing one after the other. And you know what is tail element reference. And you also have seen example where the XPath is working fine, but still it is not able to identify the object. So the issue is because of iframe. The object which we are trying to identify is inside an iframe. So now if I click on step over, what is that? Let me run this without any issues. So it successfully switched into the iframe now. Okay, it hasn't thrown any error. The reason being we placed reading the iframe at the right pace. When is the iframe loading? The iframe is loading only after clicking on the drag and drop. Earlier we placed this before the drag and drop. That's why it is returning stale element reference error. Stale element reference error is nothing but we are trying to finding an element which is not there on the web page. So this particular iframe is not there on the web page when we are actually trying to read it. So it throwed an error saying like stale element reference. So once we place this after clicking on the drag and drop, it is able to actually find out that iframe. Now we should be able to successfully find out this destination, right? So let me actually step over now. So it hasn't thrown any error now. Now we are able to successfully identify the destination also, which is the earlier issue, and we fixed that. Now let's run and see what is actually happening. So will this throw an error or it is working? Why is there is so much delay? I guess this is a complex application which is, so it got stopped. Why it got stopped? So what could be the possible, I mean, we haven't got any error, but it even didn't perform build path. So what I expect is, So one thing could be the length of this particular source, the item's length could be 0, so that it might not have entered into the loop. Let's actually find out that. So until this particular 29 line, we are successful with our code. We fixed all the issues. We fixed stale element error. We also fixed iframe, and we also know how to switch to an iframe and how to find out whether the element is under an iframe or not, and in what scenarios we have to go to the iframe. So we wrote the right XPath, but still we were not able to find out the element using the XPath. So in that case, you have to go and see the hierarchy, in the hierarchy, that whether you have iframe or not. So now again I am just doing a debug as Java application. Now it is until line number 30, the execution is successful, but it is not actually performing drag and drop operation. So now we need to figure out what could be the issue in actually executing this. So now we clicked on drag and drop, and it is also successfully identified the trash. And now we came to this line which is 30. Till this point we don't have any errors. Now look at the length of this source. So in the source we are getting nothing, but what we have expected, we expected some kind of images. So what could be the issue here? Let's go ahead and see if the images is also under an iframe or not. So it is actually not returning the images with the XPath that we are actually giving. Okay, so what is the XPath that we are using for the images? The XPath that we are using for the images is this. Okay, so copy paste this XPath and paste it over here. It will be, we are getting, the XPath is showing the things. Okay, the XPath is exactly showing what we need. It is showing us 4 images, and that is what our criteria as well, but the script is not able to find that out. So now my intention is to slowly scroll up and see whether this is under any iframe or not. Okay, this shows that this particular thing is also under this iframe. See this, the images that we are trying to find out is also under this iframe. So what could I do is, I need to switch to this iframe before even reading these images also, because the images are also under the iframe. So the images are under the iframe, the trash is also under the iframe. So before identifying these objects, I just need to switch to the iframe so that I will be able to actually get these images as well. So you need to carefully observe what are the errors that are coming up, and how we are providing the fixes, and how we are analyzing the issues. I guess this is a good task to learn so many things, and we ran into so many issues, and we are actually fixing one after the other. So what we expected is correct. So we expected the source array length could be 0 because it didn't thrown us any error. If it went into this particular loop, it might not, it should have thrown us some error, maybe because it couldn't find out something, or it couldn't find out, couldn't perform some operation. Such kind of errors might have occurred for us, but we don't see any error. The execution is completed, but we haven't seen the expected action on the UI. So the possibility could be only the source length could be 0. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm again trying to run this particular scenario and see how the output looks like. Before that, let me close all the websites and now let me run this. If I run this particular thing now, let's see what happens. Okay, we clicked on this, and now we are successfully doing a drag and drop on the, on at least an image. At least one image got successfully dragged and dropped onto the destination. Oh, we it's still happening. We placed 10 seconds delay over there. So it moved the second image, it moved the third image.
What is source length?
What is source?
Length?
No. uh, Let me tell you what is source here. Source is a list of web elements, right? Or else I would say
Yes.
size of the
Yes.
source could is 0. in the earlier case. The reason is it is inside an iframe. To read the object inside an iframe, we should actually switch to that iframe, and then only we will be able to access the elements inside that iframe. So now if you want to switch out of the iframe, let me tell you this. Again, I would like to click on something. Now we completed the drag and drop operation and it is successfully working, and we have seen that, and we fixed so many issues in this process. Now I would like to click on search elements. Okay, I would like to click on search elements now. I completed drag and drop operation and now I clicked on search element. Now this particular page has to get loaded, and I'm constructing an XPath for this, or else I can reuse this XPath. Control V, go to this, use this particular thing. We'll see. Select element and using this prefix, Control C. I'm using it here, Control V. Okay, so this is what I used. We have to click on search elements, right? So now after clicking on the drop down, I want to click on search elements. Again, after doing everything, I'm just using this XPath and I would like to click on search options now. Okay, now Control S. Let me run this again and let's see the output. Let's reduce all the times because we don't want to wait so much time. Just 2 seconds. Right click, run as Java application. Now it's dragging and dropping all the elements, and now it should click on select elements now. Okay, so drag and drop is done, it is successful, and now we are trying to click on select elements, but it is throwing an error. Why? So it is saying like element is not found or something like that. So no such element, unable to locate element, search elements. What could be the reason?
To come out of the frame.
Awesome. So actually we are inside the iframe now. So to come out of the iframe, this search element is outside the iframe. So we switched into iframe to find out these objects which are inside that iframe, but search element is not inside this iframe. The scope for searching the objects would be only inside the iframe when we switch to the iframe. That is what Selenium decided. Selenium could find out the objects only if you are inside this iframe. So to find out the objects outside the iframe, what we have to do is we have to come out of the iframe, and then we have to perform that action. To come out of the iframe, we have this syntax called as driver.switch to dot default content. So this will basically brings the control out of the iframe and it keeps the control of the whole web page. I mean, initially before this it's at some place, so we switch to the iframe and this default content will bring back the driver control to the before switching to the iframe control. Okay, now if I run this particular test case and see, we are dragging and dropping now, which is working as expected, and now it should click on select elements. Okay, so our script should be completed and without any errors. So this is all about how we perform drag and drop, and also how do we handle iframes. Okay, I hope this is a good example where we have learned different things. One important thing is iframe, switching to an iframe, coming out of an iframe, and also how to figure out whether the element is inside an iframe or not. The way to figure out is we wrote the right XPath, but still we are not able to actually perform actions on it. Okay, so that is one thing. So what all we have covered today? We covered uh, radio buttons, drop downs, drag and drop, checkboxes, and we also discussed is selected and there are two other things, is enabled and is disabled. These three methods has to be, I mean, these three methods has to be discussed in detail. But before closing for today, we are not able to collect, complete multi-select today. We'll take up this multi-select tomorrow, but before this I want to complete few things. So that is clicks. Okay, I'll create a new class, name it as clicks on objects. So there are multiple clicks. We saw only dot click method. Okay, so that is to perform a click on a particular object, but there are few other options which I'll let you know. So control D. So I'll go to a particular website. Again, let me go back to this, copy this whole thing, control C, go back to click an object, create the instance of this WebDriver, control C, and here I pasted it as control V. Now it launches the driver for us. Okay. Now uh, let's go to this website. Or I don't want to go for this website again, which took us so much of time. Okay, let me go to this website. Instead of that, let me use this control V. Again, go to the browser, go to this website, and try to click on this calculate button. Okay, right click, inspect, go ahead, identify this calculate. I'll go ahead with the value is equal to calculate. This is the unique identifier, star at the input. Hope you're able to follow me, right? All these things you're aware already. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can
Driver
follow.
dot find element I dot xpath. Into this xpath we are passing few things. Dot click. So this is the usual method that we know. Okay. And now I'll add thread dot sleep. So I'll write some sort of codes here, and you carefully observe the UI and let me know what they're actually doing. Let me add 5 seconds here. Add throws declaration and add an exception, and then I'll go back here, copy this, control C, control V dot context. This is driver dot find element. Oh, it's tagged with actions only. So we know what is actions class, and now context click. Let me initialize this variable. This is web element, right? Import this web element, copy this calculate button and put over this. Let me run this and you carefully observe the output and let me know what is the difference between dot click and context click. Okay, so we are launching the website now. So we are clicking on calculate button. So we clicked on calculate button. Did that completed? Okay, it's throwing an error. Stale element reference. Element is not attached to the page. What is happening after this? We calculated it. So whenever we are getting an issue, I'm also giving a fix for it. Just carefully observe the fix as well. What is the issue that we have got now? We got stale element error. Stale element error in the sense the element is no more there on the web page. Okay. So what could be the reason for getting that issue? Now it is working fine. We haven't got any error, and you could see the execution also completed. So this is very important thing. Getting errors is always good. So, but knowing how to fix them is very important. So, fortunately, we are getting so many errors and we are fixing everything that are coming up the way. So you see, when I don't have this, I'm getting stale element error because I initialized this calculate button here and I clicked on it, and then I'm trying to reuse this button here as well in context click. And have you observed what is this context click doing? So dot click will do normal click on that button, which is left click, whereas context click will do a right click on that particular element, web element which we are doing. So using context click, we have to use with actions. We already seen actions on how to perform drag and drop using click to element, move to element, dot release, and all the stuffs are coming under actions, which is for interacting with the web pages. Okay. So now on actions, we also have a method called as context click, which is used to perform right click on that particular element. Okay. So this context click will do a right click. That is evident and you could see that. But the whole interesting point here is why we got stale element reference. The stale element reference is this element is working over here. So there is no issue with the element when we are performing the click for the first time. And when we come to this particular point, it is giving us stale element reference error, but we could see the element is still there on the web page, right? So even when we click
Because
on that calculate button, this calculate button is still there on the web page, but still we are getting stale element reference. The reason is once we click on this calculate, the
you could
application is reloading. Okay, the page is getting reloaded. So all the parameters will get changed. So it uses some unique hash code to identify that element. So that hash code will get changed whenever we reload the application. So we are reloading the application because we are performing a click operation on that particular button. Okay, so that's all about fixing out this. That's the reason we are not able to find out the earlier button. So we are rereading that object again so that it is working perfectly. So as I told you, context click is to do a right click on that particular element. You carefully observe this. So we are actually opening the browser now. We are clicking on the calculate button. and we are waiting for few seconds, and now we are doing a right click on it. Using context click, we are doing a right click on that calculate button. So context click is used to perform a right click on that particular web element. So that is what context click basically means. And we also have something called as double click. Double click is used to perform click two times. Okay, we have something called as, everything got changed, I guess. Go to actions dot double click. So double click is to click multiple times on a particular object. So instead of a single click, we could do click multiple times on this calculate button. Got it? So let's have a look at this now. Right click, run as, and so I have a question for you. So why we are not using build over here? We used only perform. We haven't used build. What is the reason? Think of it and see this in action. So we are expecting, after right click, we are expecting double click. So it just clicks two times on that particular element. That's all. So we launched the website. We are like clicked on it, right clicked on it, and trying to do a double click. And now in this case, and we also have successfully executed this double click as well, because we haven't got any error. Double click is just the name itself says it clicks twice on that particular web element. But the question here is why we haven't used build, we just used only perform. What is the reason?
Build will,
Not continuous action,
yeah,
So we use
double
build
action.
when we have to perform sequence of action, right? So
yeah,
when we have multiple actions that needs to be performed or to be sequenced, we have to use build. But we have only one action over here, which is like context click or double click. These are single actions. So we doesn't need to actually sequence any actions over here because it's a single action. So that's the reason we haven't used build over here. Got it. So to keep everything short, what we have discussed today is radio buttons, checkboxes, drop downs, different methods and drop downs. We discussed select, but not the full context. Uh, and what else? We have seen what is iframe, right? We also discussed about handling stale element reference. We got different stale element references, and we handled different stale element errors. And hope now you got what actually a stale element reference is, how to actually fix that. Switching into iframe, getting out of the iframe, drag and drop, clicks, normal click, context click, and also uh, what is the other click we have performed?
Double click.
build, double click.
Yeah. So that's pretty much for today from my side. Any questions?
Sir, would you mind? Can you tell me one more time where and all we can use actions other than drag and drop and context?
Uh, Most probably to actually perform any keys actions, we have something called as, just click action start, and you have everything over here. Click and hold, context click, drag and drop by get active keys. So you see these options, keys down, keys up. So like when you multi-select, okay, when you multi-select options, what do? You just do control, and then you will select multiple options, right? So the control
Yes.
key has to be always clicked, correct?
Yes, yes.
So that is nothing but key down. Okay, you
Okay.
key down and key up, key down. All these actions comes under those particular things. Dot release. You have seen a release as well, right?
Yes.
Release can be used for keys, and release can be used on a web element as well. We use this particular thing for web element. So you have a method scroll to element as well. If you want to scroll the page down to a particular web element, you can use scroll to element. So you can just explore, everything is self-explanatory, and you can do a Google search. So just do actions dot and you will see different methods. We explored few. What is context click? We use double click, we use drag and drop. We haven't used drag and drop basically. So there is also a direct method, which is like you can give source and target, but we actually constructed it like click and hold, move to element dot release, but instead you can directly use drag and drop. Okay. Try this option as well. Drag and drop, give directly source and destination. We also gave source and destination, but have done that in a different way. So get active, we'll keys down, keys up. We will actually see this when we actually use, when actually automate multi select. Move to element. Move to element is like hover. We will also say this. This notify and all comes under threads, under multi-threading concept, which is like central things. We use perform, we see in release. Scroll by element, again this is like scrolling in elements. So these are all self-explanatory, you can explore them. These are the options that are available with actions.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Like I want to. I have written X path, but I'm not getting the value. Shall I share it for the
Yeah,
table? It is
yeah.
there in the table. So I wrote the X path. Everything is working. Like, but I'm not getting the value.
Okay, you can share your screen. Oh, what's your name? Do you want me
Netra,
to give you address?
Netra.
Netra, make presenter. Yeah, you can share your screen now, Netra. Maybe others who don't have any questions can drop off. Okay.
Can you see my screen, sir?
Yeah, I'm able to.
Yeah, here a product information is there, right? This is in the table form.
Mm-hmm.
So here I wrote the XPath. So it is in the
Okay.
table. I took
Okay.
ID and value as attribute and value.
Mm-hmm.
And then table in that table body I took, like I
Mm-hmm.
am from coming from parent to child. So child is T body. Again
Mm-hmm.
in that row is there, table
Mm-hmm.
row. In
Mm-hmm.
that table row head is there here. Table row has
So
two
the
TH
XPath
and
is
T.
working fine, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, like if I change the content here, content text I took it. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting all these things, but I have to get this TD, right? 4.97, these values I have to get, right?
Yeah.
97. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
getting that one. How to do that one? How to fetch that TD value, TD data?
Okay. Uh, so this is where you are now. You are at TH. You are at ASIN, right? Where is
Yes.
that? Just scroll the tree down.
What like ASI?
No, no. I want to see your what is there in that particular TR again. So
Okay,
scroll
TR.
down just a bit.
This
Okay.
one.
Now, yeah. After this,
Yeah.
what you have to do, you have to go to the parent and come to the TD,
I
right?
have to go to TR, right?
TR, yes. Double
Yeah.
forward slash parent hyphen hyphen TR
Oh.
and then TD. That TD will give you the value. So you are tagging ASIN with your value
Parent TR.
TR.
I have.
TR, not TD,
Okay.
it's TR.
Yes,
Parent
and
is
then
TR, right?
yes,
Yeah,
I give.
double single forward slash TD.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything
So
else?
Sir,
when
I have
Mm-hmm.
like when we have to use a parent to child or child to parent, and I have one more question like I took two examples. In both the examples, information is there in the table form. But
Mhm.
one yesterday you gave one more example. In that, information is there differently. So how we should know that what are the things common in these two tables? How to write expert for all those things? In the next
Parent to child is just a traversal. How do you traverse from parent to child? So if there is a requirement to traverse from parent to child, you will use this syntax. It all depends on how your DOM structure is designed.
oh, okay.
So if the DOM has this traversal, you have to use these things to traverse through that element. So you could see this in this particular example, you have TR and TD under the same parent. So you
Yes.
have to get the TD, so you have to go to the parent,
Okay.
right? Something like that.
Okay.
So for the customer reviews in the product information for every product, so
Mhm.
for the customer review field, we have to write new extract, right? This extract is not collecting those
Yeah,
values.
if that is happening, you have to write a separate XPath for that. So if the unique XPath is not working for all the fields, then there is no option. You have to do it separately for that particular thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'll take it. Yeah.
are you going to cover this different XPaths, or like we have to, because there is single slash, double slash meaning is there, like
Okay,
TNT.
that's not a
So
big deal. I'll take it up. I'll remember this. It's not a big thing, but just a 5 minutes
Like
thing. I'll try to
no,
explain this.
okay, okay. No, I'm just asking, like, are you
Yeah, yeah.
going to cover, or we should do by ourselves, like that?
Maybe I'll cover this. There is no harm using double forward slash, but there is no need to even use single forward slash. You can simply go with double forward slash all the times.
Okay,
Okay, that
okay.
that would also be a thumb rule. There is no need to actually switch back from double forward slash to single forward slash.
Yeah, okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
So when will be the next class?
Maybe I'll take the next session on Thursday if possible.
Okay.
All right, we'll catch up in the next session then. If you have any queries, I'll take them in the next
okay.
session.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.